When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
It is Rewind to Raw. Royal Rumble week begins. I am John Pollock, joined as always by the man himself, Wai Ting, on this Monday evening. How are you, Wai?
I'm doing well. How are you, John?
I'm doing spectacular, doing wonderful. What'd you get up to this weekend? Did you? I kind of just laid low. It's kind of a quiet weekend, you know. Decided to put my phone down for a little bit.
Yeah,
just enjoy the outdoors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't get to much myself, you know. How about you? How was your weekend?
I went to the UFC event on Saturday night. It was the UFC 297. We have two new champions in Dricus du Plessis and Raquel Pennington winning the vacant bantamweight championship. Very long night at the Scotiabank Center, Scotiabank Arena, as I correct myself. And there was a press conference afterwards. I stuck around for the press conference.
Oh, you went?
Yes, I decided. I was in the back for most of the show. Got there, and to my surprise, they'd given me like press row access. It's like, wow, I didn't get press row access back in the day. And here we are, how far we have come, Wai. So look at that. Thought, man, this is wonderful. But for the purposes of my own work, I stayed in the back for the whole show because we were getting the rotation of fighters to get the winners. It's way different than when we had to do like the free-for-all scrums. Now it's the same as the format as you saw at Media Day, where, and anyone that like watches the post-show stuff, you would know the format. They bring you to the desk. Everyone pretty much gets a chance to speak, and you can get in more than like one question. It was a really good setup with all of the fighters. Unfortunately, for like if you're coming at it from the Canadian angle, outside of Jasmine Jasdavicius and Jillian Robertson, the men like went 0-4 for the whole night. Like all the male Canadian fighters lost. So I think that kind of took the air out of the sails of some at the Scotiabank Arena, including Mike Malott, who was on his way to winning this fight with Neil Magny. And then boom, the last couple of minutes, Neil Magny turned it around, finished Mike Malott, and that was it. So that was your UFC report.
Anything else eventful happen?
Oh, let me go through this. So we then go to the press conference with Dana White, and Dana White came in and took some of his questions, and then I got my question in, Wai. And I came in, I wanted to get to like a series of topics, and I'm going in with the impression that it's probably going to be like one question and you got to hand off the mic. But then I'm seeing throughout the night, it seems like the format is you can get some follow-ups in here too. So I kind of had a couple in mind that I wanted to get to. And so, yes, I wanted to address like the Sean Strickland story from earlier in the week. I felt that was the biggest story of the week when it came to the actions that occurred during fight week. And I thought that we covered it quite a bit. And I thought it was like only fair that we get, you know, essentially what I wanted to ask was basically, is there a line? There was a time in the UFC when this kind of stuff was actively discouraged. You might remember years ago when Nate Diaz just used a homophobic slur on Twitter and was fined for doing that. And you cannot imagine that happening now.
Matt Mitrione
was another. So obviously, like it has shifted the mindset of Dana White and the UFC. That has shifted, and I think we saw that in a really ugly form on Wednesday. And I mean, I was like genuinely asking, not as just believe me, I was not going into this with the idea of like some confrontational situation, but as I mentioned, I went over a bunch of this on the UFC review, but I imagine many people listening to this probably have not heard that, is that we were only a month removed from Leon Edwards and Colby Covington. And in the days before that fight, Colby Covington made a really ugly line referring to Leon Edwards' deceased father. And that really struck people in a bad way. Like that was for many people, not everyone. Believe me, I have learned there's a wide range of acceptability. But even Dana White noted when asked about it that, yeah, that was like something he wasn't crazy about. Not to the point that he is like going to, stop anyone from doing anything, but he voiced his own discomfort with that level. So I genuinely asked with the idea of this is not Sean Strickland going on his Twitter account. This is not Sean Strickland doing a third-party interview. This is Sean Strickland at a UFC event that is taking the time out to go on a rant, a homophobic rant, a transphobic rant. And I mean, even if you want to be someone that feels that when it comes to fight promotion, there are no rules and there are no topics that are off limits. If you like, this was not even that. It is not as though he was going off on some rant related to Dricus du Plessis. This was totally separate from that. This was like, if we want to go back to the Colby Covington line, and again, I thought that was just gross, that line to Leon Edwards. But if Colby Covington wins that fight, a part of that narrative would be that he rattled Leon Edwards. And even in defeat, part of the story was that Leon Edwards acknowledged that that line really bothered him. And he had to channel all of his anger to put forward a performance like he did against Colby Covington. This was like not even like you, and I'm looking at like the most to anyone that would just feel like, hey, when it comes to fight promotion, nothing is off limits. Like this was totally separate from that, of someone just using their time at a UFC event to project those views. And I mean, I feel like I got my answer from Dana White in the sense that there is no line. And I think everyone does have a line. I think even Dana White has a line, and we won't know it until it's crossed, but I think it exists. I think you could come up with horrific examples that I can't fathom that they would be okay with that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm giving too much credit, but I mean, that was my belief, was like in the midst of it all, that like that was the gist of what I was trying to get at. But obviously I felt in the moment that I stepped on a landmine with the like I gave him the leash word, and thus it totally to me took away any chance at a meaningful answer or discussion, because boom, he pounced on it and he was very effective in doing that, and it totally shifted the focus to that one word, and that became the focus of it. So I mean, in the midst of it, it's like I've got his answer, and then I wanted to get to my follow-ups too. I didn't want to like turn this into just, we're just going to argue here back and forth. I clearly see what his view is. But I also like, I've spoken enough about this. I also want to know your thoughts of just how I presented it, and if you thought it was fair or unfair, or however you felt it was.
I thought it was more than fair. Yeah. And maybe that's probably not going to be surprising to you. I've been presented with a lot of the other perspective on this topic over the past week. And when I say presented, I mean just scroll down. I'm sure on this video, in a few hours you'll see it yourself. And
dude, these people, they're crafty. Okay, they have found, boy,
they have a lot of time on their hands, and that's perfectly fine. If I could show
you what has made its way to me, it's they're
great for engagement, I suppose.
They're determined. Okay, they are a very ambitious bunch when it comes to needling.
Yeah. Your job is to talk about the news. Your job is to talk about the most talked about stories, and without a doubt, to my perspective at least, that was the most talked about story going into this event, UFC 297. It'll probably be, well, maybe outside of like the title changes, to somebody like me who doesn't even watch the fights anymore, but follows mainstream news outlets like an ESPN or a CBC. This is the story of UFC 297. So for you to bring it up and to get the boss's perspective on it was completely and 100% fair. It was you doing your job, and you did your job. That's how I feel about it. And then him, like, Dana latching onto a word, you just kind of come to expect, that sort of thing, right?
He's very good at
very
that.
good.
Like in terms of just like I'm not one that's like regretful. I think that it is like
Well, if it was in this word, it would have been another word. Like,
that's
this
what I
is
feel it
the
would have
art of
been.
dodging.
It would have been something else, that it's just you took something and shut it down. And in the moment, I'm just thinking like, you can't possibly think I'm being literal here. Like, please tell me you don't think I'm being literal here from somebody that, the UFC produces a show called UFC Unleashed. Like, we know that's not literal, correct? Like, I'm not advocating for literal leeches on people. That's what I felt like in the moment. And that seems to be what people were angered by, which I
mean,
can't
the
even argue at
interpretation,
that level.
was like, a feeling of control, as if, like, Dana, I guess,
Controls the fighters.
controls what they say.
Well, he
That's,
definitely
I think,
doesn't
what was
control
inferred.
what they say. But if you are someone that was offended by me insinuating that the UFC has control over these fighters, boy, do I have an antitrust lawsuit for you coming April 15th.
Well, again, just by judging, Dana's own words himself from the past, there's precedent set for, a limit on the free speech that he seems to be so proud to promote right now.
They took away flags for a time not all that long ago. I mean, certainly you're going to have that, and that's all I state is that at the core, I was not even coming at this with sort of the like the political side of this whole argument, which I understood that is what this was going to be disseminated and pieced up into. I fully get that of what I was stepping into, but at its core, this is also a business that is being run. And is this bad for business? I think you could make actually a pretty significant argument that this has not deterred UFC's business at all. If in fact you had a packed arena on Saturday that treated Sean Strickland as by far the biggest star on that card. And that is an observation in and of itself that, and believe me, I have seen the fallout of this in that there is a giant, or at least a super loud base that is clamoring for this, that feels their rights are under attack, that their ability to say and feel anything is under attack. And I'm just trying to understand that more because we have seen that shift in the UFC, and they are dining in this area and doing exceptionally well by it. And you would think one of the questions that preceded me was any fallout over this from broadcasters, sponsors, and Dana White. If you take his word for it, there was none. So they are on board with this sport, the culture that it has embraced, and that has become a feature, not a bug.
Could I play a clip from Dana from the past talking about the Matt Mitrione story and his stance on free speech at the time?
If you have a clip.
I mean, this kind of was brought up, and I do think maybe the story here is the shift in philosophy. So let's play this clip.
I know that there was a lot of talk, free Mitrione and all this stuff with the fans, and it's freedom of speech and all this stuff. That's absolutely ridiculous. Work at any company anywhere in America and go out and say ignorant, stupid stuff publicly. Even on top of that, say it publicly in a big, place where people can go read it or hear it publicly and see what happens to you, and.
So that was the clip from years ago, stepping off of, I guess, controversial statements Matt Mitrione, UFC heavyweight, made about Fallon Fox, transgendered UFC fighter, and Dana White commenting on, I suppose, his stance on that level of free speech at that time. So what changed, and when did it change? And
I think that's the end. And no one is, prohibited from changing their views. Whether you agree with them or not is separate, but you are allowed to change your views and your opinions over time. And there's been a stark difference when you hear that clip and juxtapose it to, you would never in a million years hear Dana White uttering that now. Like this is a cause. This is a philosophy that has been adopted. And I mean, even if you want to go closer to the pandemic, like there was not all that long ago that Dana White was stating, you tune into a UFC broadcast, you're not getting any of these politics, you're not getting any of that stuff that you're going to see out there. You tune in for the fights, and that's what you're going to get here. And that we're only talking about 2020 to now as well. So it seems to be as though we are, and UFC will or Dana White, I should be specific, like espouses that, like, we're not about politics here. Well, it's like, you're not about a certain brand of politics, but this has become very political in terms of what the UFC stands and represents for. And it is too, they are the shining light in terms of that, their sport, their industry being an outlet for the promotion being an outlet for this.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I almost hesitate to bring forth any sort of like solid criticism, because I feel like there are going to be solid arguments perhaps on the other side, that feel like everything that's being said is within sort of like, I don't know, freedoms and rights and all this shit that I just don't even want to get into. But to me, just as an outsider looking in, there's been a very clear shift in perhaps the UFC's policies when it comes to something like this over the past several years. And I'd love to get more information on it. And that's exactly what I think you were trying to do on Saturday. And I have all the respect in the world for you, to even step into that dimension, knowing the type of, blowback that you would receive.
Yeah. And like, again, I think most people know, like, I sincerely do not covet this attention. I don't like being the focus of any kind of news story. I understand
you don't want to be a poster boy for woke leftist, soy boys everywhere.
I've got to say, like, I was talking to someone this morning, and it was like, what do you gain from this? And what I gain from this is, like, this is a very unique experience to be kind of in the middle of this. So it's like, what can I learn from this? And it's like, I might sound like a total nerd to some people, but like, I'm literally like studying like the titling of like the videos, like how they're worded, how they are. Like, I'm learning all this as I go, but man, I handed them like media reporter, #1, woke, Canadian on top of it.
Yeah.
Dude, this is manna from the heavens for these like ultra right leaning like
American
channels that
are, and Canadian sources too,
and they do tremendous, not like the numbers attached to this are gigantic, like that. Like, it is such a gigantic system that, like, I'm content that's being farmed. So it's really hard for me to take any of this too personally. It's like, again, I asked this question and I'm not a dummy, at least not as much as people might assume today. Like, I know what I'm putting myself into. So whenever I put that out, whatever comes back at me is on me. I will totally wear that. It's like, I only say this because literally I got texts from people like checking in to like, are you okay? And all that told me was, man, it's got to be really bad. If like, I got multiple like wellness texts from people of like, dude, how are you holding up? Are you okay? Very nice of people. I will say, of everyone, and I got some very nice messages. Chris Elliott sent me like the most heartwarming thing that I won't share the contents of. It was private, but I will take something like that a million times more than any of the comments, the hatred. Leash boy, I actually get a chuckle out of leash boy. I'm okay with that, but like, I totally own, I'll paraphrase, okay, and then we will move on. I know people don't want to hear all of this. I will take most of the blame for like my word choice with Dana, because some people were like, what were you thinking in the middle of that? And sometimes you are struggling, Way. You'll know this when you're in the midst of something and you're looking for the right word. And
we've done podcasts where, like, you just freeze.
Sometimes you just say the wrong word. And sometimes I've got like just a reflex of something that was recent in my mind. So in that moment, as I was searching for that word, let's take me into the mind of John Pollock and a conversation I've been having recently with one of my friends about our kids. And this is what I was thinking. She goes down the stairs as my wife is like locking the door. She runs across the street.
God, terrifying.
Scares the shit out of me. even hearing this after the fact when she's home and fine, it scares the hell out of me of being downtown and
Do you have leashes for your kids?
No, I feel that's really inhumane, but I had one when I was a kid. Like, yeah, my parents literally had like me and my brother on a leash.
Yeah. I'm starting to like really understand and maybe enjoy the idea of doing something like that. Cause it's like, I mean, for me though, it's just again about their safety. That clip, courtesy of woke leftist Canadian podcaster Wai Ting on the most recent edition of Pollock and Ting Talk, available in the Post Wrestling Cafe.
So again, I'll own 98% of this, but at least 2% I'm going to blame on Wai for putting that in my head. So close.
I mean, out of context, I feel like that clip sounds way worse than really anything you might be attached to. But it's very good pull, John. Wow.
Anyway, well, it's I knew I had to like address this and talk about it, folks. It's like my last thing. I don't want to like be preachy here, but like probably to the outside, it's like it's not that bad. It's like you like
what level of outside are you talking about? Which layer of the onion are you talking about when you're talking about the outside? Like people that aren't involved in combat sports? What do you mean? Like
I would say for anyone that like this would be like a smaller number of people that might watch this and be like, God, I never want to ask a tough question because that might happen to me.
Gotcha. Right.
Do not be deterred by that. Like, please. It's like, this is minimal in the grand scheme of things.
We got clarity on Dana's thoughts on the story. You got something out of it. You know?
Folks, I can only tell you, like, and I'm being completely honest, if after talking all about that last week, and here I have the microphone and the ability, like how many people have the chance to have a conversation with the person that is the head of the company who's staring right at me. And if I had just punted and just gone with a safe question instead, I promise you, I would have gotten none of the negative feedback, but believe me, I would have felt awful. I would have felt worse than anyone would have. Like these comments are like nothing. It's white noise, and I will be yesterday's news by whenever they get tired of me, which I'm a very boring person. They will move on.
I mean, if we're valuing free speech, reporters should feel the right to ask whatever they want.
Yeah, no, I had people like, oh, what'll happen to your credentials? Like, guys, I have no concern about credentials, nor do I want people to even think like that is some like threat that I have. For all I know, I'm perfectly welcome to return. And if not, I'm not. Like, that is not, that should not be in your space at all.
When was the last time you went to a UFC event as press?
It's been years.
And we've existed more than fine. Like, we don't even need WWE or AEW credentials to do this job. It's meaningless to us. It's nice to have. It's nice to provide extra content from a different perspective, but it's meaningless for our jobs.
I'll tell you, some of these YouTube channels, they want to make sure I'm credentialed from now until the end of time. Okay.
Oh, you got some. Yeah,
they want me on the road.
Shit.
Okay. Every single month, they want me at these events.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was the weekend of John Pollock and UFC 297. Full review up on the site. Dricus du Plessis hanging out in town in the days after as middleweight champion, checking out some establishments on King Street.
Gabby's, from what I hear,
served by the one and only Davey Portman.
What are the chances? You get the new champ, first meal outside of the hotel. I'm sure maybe one of his first meals, I should say. Gabby's on King Street, served by Davey Portman. What are the chances?
I mean, it's Dricus du Plessis became a big fan of Toronto. But there you go. We have got some other news items. Not a crazy day of news, but want to go through a few things here. We buried the lead here. Big promotion within the Post Wrestling family. 10-day Ray becoming two-way Ray. So congratulations. Breaking news, or I guess it broke last night on the Nubian Wrestling Advocates. I'm gonna say new record for the Nubian Wrestling Advocates. 445. 445, 440 something ish. Yeah. They will hit 5, I'm sure. Easy. Soon. Yeah, that's the next mark. I'm waiting for the time they go live on a Sunday night and I wake up Monday morning and they're still going.
But I'm gonna listen to every minute. That's just like how good these 4 now are, you know. So welcome Ray Williams, a new member, full time on the Nubian Wrestling Advocates. So a lot of discussion about the topic that we just talked about. Actually, I don't know if you got to hear it, but a lot of discussion about everything that you went through over the weekend.
Four great guys on the NWA podcast. It was the toughest thing on Sunday actually was, you know what time I got out of that arena on Sunday night? Saturday night, I should say.
Dude, like must have been 2:30.
3:35 I left the arena after that press conference. That's how late it went.
Wow.
So I got out there, cabbed it home, and then I went to bed at 4:30 and then woke up at 8 a.m. and that was the least woke I had been all weekend. That's it. That's all my material. That's all I got. Kazuchika Okada, he spoke with Tokyo Sports and gave a bit more insight into his decision to leave New Japan Pro Wrestling. He stayed, and this is from the English translation, so bear that in mind. First of all, this year was the 5th year, the final year of his contract. I guess it was a good time to think about something. When I was thinking about whether I would sign with New Japan Pro Wrestling or whether I would look elsewhere in the world, I realized that this might be my last chance. We've been talking about various things, of course, but also about the company, and we've been together for a while now. I only recently made the decision. And, you know, he's 36 years old, and he's still at a time in his career way where he can go out, and he's still in his athletic prime as well. And earning wise, I mean, he's going to get a monster deal wherever he goes. This is going to be enormous money coming his way. He's going to be the subject of a bidding battle, hopefully, between both companies for him. And it would seem that the ball is in his court to go where he opts to. But you and I have not had a chance yet to talk about the Okada news. But obviously, this is going to be the focus over the next several weeks, and how his exit from New Japan is handled. He's got the 2 Korakuen and Hall shows this week, the Tanahashi match on the 11th, and then he wraps up the 23rd and 24th on the Hokkaido shows.
Well, I can't imagine Barry Bloom comes cheap, you know, if as an agent, and I don't think he deals with contracts that aren't incredibly lucrative for everybody involved. So yeah, like that in probably the number one reason why we're even, you know, talking about Okada leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling is to get the bag, as the kids say. Yeah, it's a huge story, but it's one that I mean, just judging by some of the reaction I've seen, I think they're equal parts, perhaps. I don't know, dread for the future of New Japan, and I think equal parts optimism, you know, for the future and what sort of, like, you know, opportunities this creates for the next generation.
I think there's both. I think short term, I'm with you. I think there's going to be a lot. There needs to be some big moves. Like like New Japan has to get out of the conservative mindset. We are not building for tomorrow. We're building for now, and we got to just we're just going to put a jetpack on them, and that could be very exciting if they just decide to take a Yota Tsuji. My concern, which also goes to your point, is the long term is this what kind of like breaks the mentality of a lot of these Japanese stars that this is the be all end all? Does this become the new pathway? And whoever is this going to be just a different version of ECW circa 2000 where Paul could not hang on to any of it. He was just constantly having to make new stars who were just going to go to the better offer. And your Yota Tsuji, where's Yota Tsuji going to be in 2 years? Where is Yuya Uemura going to be in 2 years? And does this kind of break the cycle of guys that are lifers with New Japan that come up through that system and graduate? And it's could you do a Naito multi-year story when you have, you know, the ability for these guys that are going to view making it in America as the next logical step, and now that pathway has been paved?
It's an interesting question. I think it's especially interesting considering it's Japan that we're talking about, and they have such a long history of people just coming up through their systems and staying through those systems, you know, for eternity, not jumping to other promotions. I mean, we've seen different sort of, like, you know, breakings of perhaps that sort of like unspoken rule, but I don't know if we've maybe looked at North America as much of a viable option for the top level of Japanese stars as we are right now. I mean, the biggest star in the entire country, is going to be signing with an American company. So what does that mean for everybody else? So what's the solution if you're New Japan? Are you looking to offer longer term contracts? How do you make yourself? How do you proof yourself against two giant companies that are also vying for your professional wrestlers?
I mean, it's going to have to be like, number one, what is in their pocket is that you go up and down this roster. There are going to be those that are not going to want to uproot themselves from Japan. Like, you do have that. If you do want to be stationed in Japan, this is the company you want to aspire to be in. But you're going to it's going to be tough to be competitive dollar wise with the two major companies that are only going to get richer in these next set of television deals if all goes according to hopes with AEW. And WWE is going to be in a very, it's not only in a very, very advantageous position, but with a different mindset now when it comes to Japanese stars. And you're not signing an Okada to just put him into a mid-card role. Like, you are putting a giant investment in him, and that's only going to serve as a message to everyone else. Like, look at what they've done with Okada, and that's going to play an effect too. It's going to take time. I think, again, the short term, I think, could actually be reinvigorating for New Japan. And if you felt that, like we talked about, like, the highlights of the past year has been the ascension of some of these younger stars, but it needs to, like, if that was a 7, we got to ramp this up to an 11 and just go and take some risky, but like big moves to shine a light. And they have this opportunity. Like, Okada, like, you've got the never open weight, the never 6-man tag title match this week. Like, that last match in Hokkaido, like, I think that you should be having Okada losing to somebody on the way out. Like, do something massive. Like, this should not be Nakamura leaving as Intercontinental Champion and vacates. Not to say the never titles are that, but the reputation of, like, we're going to send Okada out as this star that is going off, and we're going to treat him like, book him strong on the way out. It's like, we've got to figure out who is taking his mantle.
So what do you think happens with the Tanahashi match? Who wins that one? I'm curious. So he's facing, for people who aren't aware, Tanahashi is one of the matches they specifically booked and announced for that Osaka show, I believe.
Yeah, the 11th, which is that loaded show with Zach and Danielson and the 5-on-5 cage match. So that's Ospreay's last show.
Yeah. And just poetically, it was also the place where Okada and Tanahashi first had their title match and the big upset win from Okada. So you're just kind of wrapping up the story that way. But if you are both, on the one hand, basically, pushing, saying goodbye to Okada as they leave a territory, while at the same time potentially setting them up for a bigger goodbye match against one of your new generation guys, how do you book the outcome to Okada versus Tanahashi?
So I would not be booking Okada to just be doing jobs from here on out, because they're not going to have that impact. If it is, like, we don't know what the Hokkaido matches are. If you're telling me it's going to be, pick your guy, Yota Tsuji. They've done the teases with, like, Kosei Fujita wanting that elusive win over Okada. Whoever it is, if that is where they're going, make it the one big loss. Tanahashi doesn't need the win. A win or a loss is not going to hurt Tanahashi's standing. So if you are just building up to the big key loss, I'm fine with Okada beating Tanahashi if it is to set up something bigger at Hokkaido with someone who could really ascend in a big way. Tanahashi is Tanahashi. It's not, we're not building the company.
He's on his way out.
That's it. He can withstand the loss. It's not the worst situation, but it has to be someone. It has to be somebody rather than Okada just getting this, grand departure and goes out as the biggest star we've ever had is now going. It's the other case of the AEW part of the equation, and this idea that, well, you'll be able to get dates here and there on Ospreay and Okada. Like, how much do you want the perception that, like, the big stars come back for one big show and then we've got to carry the rest of the year with the perception being like the lesser stars? Like, that's the AEW side of it that is tough when you're starting to see, like, here are two massive names that are going over there, And what Wrestle Kingdom, it's about the stars that we don't have year round, but they're the real stars to the public.
Yeah, exactly. And like any deal with AEW is going to be a trade, you know, like he's not just going to be coming in and putting over a younger star without something of equal value to AEW. They don't really have that incentive. So I think it's interesting to see how they book this goodbye. And I have to think that they're going to be smart about it, or at least I hope. One last thing on this before we move on. Karen Peterson and Bruce Lord had a great discussion about Kazuchika Okada leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling on their New Beginning in Nagoya post show, which released this past weekend in the Post Wrestling Cafe. However, if you're not a Post Wrestling Cafe member, we have put that entire discussion up for all of you to listen to for free at youtube.com/postwrestling. So simply scroll over slightly below this, look up the video, and enjoy their great analysis talking about his departure from all angles, where he'll end up, how this leaves New Japan. Really great discussion from Karen and Bruce.
So the next 2 days, they're at Korakuen Hall. Tuesday's show, which is Tuesday morning on New Japan World, it's headlined by El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru for the junior heavyweight title. The bigger show is Wednesday. It starts at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, and that includes the never openweight six-man tag title match with Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii defending the titles against Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, and Kosei Fujita. But the big one is, well, Okada's last match at Korakuen Hall is pretty important, but the headliner is Ren Narita and Shota Umino, which should be the main event. Like I really, they booked this before the Okada news, but I'm glad that they are keeping this in the main event slot. I think it's like, that is how these two should be positioned. Like this should be treated like this is their biggest match. They're headlining Korakuen Hall, and this, like, these are our future guns that are going to be just moved significantly higher coming out of this. So I hope they go out and just, you know, tear the place down on Wednesday. So that's an interesting card on Wednesday.
A lot more pressure on those guys suddenly.
A lot of pressure going forward, which can be very good for New Japan to kind of have that change of things. Ratings notes: SmackDown did 2,408,000 viewers and a 0.62 on Friday night, according to WrestleNomics. Very little movement from the Friday prior. They were going up against a much stronger NBA game that did like 1 million more viewers than the game last week. So the fact that they were basically even was a good sign, because the competition was a lot more on Friday night. Where they did really big was Canada. They did 243,700 viewers and 95,000 in the 25 to 54 demo on Sportsnet 360, which was the most watched sports program on Friday night in Canada. It was ahead of the NBA, it was ahead of the NHL, and it was ahead of curling, guys, in Canada. So that was a big night for SmackDown, their highest number in Canada since October 27th. We are suckers for contract signings, especially when there's 4 signatures to procure over a 2-hour window.
They made us wait for that last one, and I guess it worked. Yeah.
And Rampage did 390,000 viewers and a 0.12 in the demo. Audience was up 2%. Down 2%, and the demo increased 6%, also going against the late NBA game. And this was a more stacked Rampage. You had Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy in the main event, which was totally nuts. And you had Chris Jericho in the opener against Matt Sydal. So it didn't spike the Rampage number, but was more in line with what the show has been doing each Friday. But this match was totally crazy. That dive by Darby Allin landing on the chair. My God.
I mean, what would you expect from these two? I mean, even if in front of 100 people, I'm sure they would have had a very similar level of match. And interestingly, it seems like they're teasing a Jeff Hardy heel turn, or they're continuing to.
Yeah, I mean, and that will probably progress on Wednesday when he's got Swerve Strickland. So let's end it there with just what's coming up over the next 2 nights. We have NXT, which includes the continuation of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. We will get Nathan Frazier and Axiom against Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker in the semifinal. Lexis King takes on Trey Bearhill. It's all led to this. Joe Gacy against Dijak. Blair Davenport against Carmen Petrovich, and Lash Legend will take on Ren Sinclair, who debuted in the Battle Royal last week, the former Maddie Renkowski in AEW. And AEW has announced a bunch of matches for Wednesday show in Savannah, Georgia, including Adam Copeland and Minoru Suzuki. Might end up being the main event on the show for all we know. There's not like one match that stands out as like the clear-cut main event for the show, but I could see it being that.
It's my main event.
Then they will also have Jeff Hardy and Swerve Strickland, as we mentioned, Penta against Hangman Page, Wardlow against Trent Beretta, and the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass defending the trios titles against the Mogul Embassy, along with a face-to-face with Tony Storm and Deonna Purrazzo, and appearances by Sting and Darby Allin. So that is coming up on Wednesday, and we will have shows covering all of these. Up next will be live on Tuesday night with Braden and Davey. Wednesday, we have Pollock and Thurston at 3 Eastern with the return of Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, joining Brandon and I. And then Wednesday night, Rewind to Dynamite. And Thursday, Rewind Away up at postwrestlingcafe.com. You will get a review of You Cannot Kill David Arquette.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Months ago, maybe at this point, we talked about David Arquette's WCW championship win. Now we're going to bookend it very nicely with his return run into independent professional wrestling, talking about everything, including pretty uncomfortable match he had with Nick Gage.
Yes, so that will be covered. Also, for those with Cafe Access, you will also be getting MCU later this week with WH and Rich Fan covering episodes 3 and 4 of Echo, which, breaking news, I think this might be the series I jump into and check out.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. I'm a sucker for Kingpin, man. Kingpin's my favorite villain.
Okay.
So I might.
Hey, you're a huge Daredevil fan, and I suppose this would be the one to jump back in.
Yeah, this one looks, the series looks interesting, and it's like five episode commitment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. And then we have got Collision Course, Rewind to SmackDown with the tandem of John Pollock and Neil chatting SmackDown. We'll do a little Rumble preview and maybe even a little Dallas talk on Friday night.
Ooh.
And then Free for Everyone Saturday night. Way and I will be live minutes after the Royal Rumble on Saturday night, which as things stand, Way, 4 matches. And we will see if anything more gets added. But of course, we have 2 Battle Royals.
Well, yeah. I mean, at this stage, I don't expect these shows to ever go to like the 5, 6, 7 hour length anymore. So I expect it to be pretty manageable, and I'm really looking forward to the Rumble this year.
If I'm asleep before 4:30, I'll be happy after the Royal Rumble. So that is the key. All right. All the shows can be found postwrestling.com in the schedule there. And for those that want to just jump on board, postwrestlingcafe.com, including multiple audio updates throughout the week from the one and only John Pollock at the Double.
Best in the business.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that printed and put on my wall. Quotations, waiting. All right, let's move on over to Raw tonight from New Orleans, Louisiana, the beautiful Smoothie King Center, a venue we have been to many a time. Well, at least once.
Yes, we have. Yes, beautiful city,
wonderful city. New Orleans, can't go wrong. WrestleTix reporting over 8,500 tickets distributed and episode number 1,600, according to Michael Cole on this show. We have sat through 600 3-hour episodes, 3-hour editions of Raw.
Boy, like at some point in the not so distant future, you're going to tell me we've sat through 1,000 of these and that half of Raw's lifespan has been 3 hours. And
we're not that far away from getting there. And you and I have probably reviewed like 98% of those 3-hour Raws.
Haven't we done all of them?
Well, I'm just saying if like there was the odd Monday we missed, we're probably above 99%, to be quite honest. Like we have not missed too many in some form or fashion. We have had a review of Raw every Monday.
Well, here's a question.
How much Emmy hours have we spent watching Raw?
No. Could it no longer be 3 hours a year from now? No,
I don't think so.
You think it'll be 3 hours forever?
Okay, here the only way. No, I will say like pretty definitively it will
even like if it's an Amazon, you think it'll be 3 hours?
I do think it'll be, because it's another hour of content that they're already. Like all the costs are fixed for WWE. It's not like it costs them more to produce this extra hour. And for Amazon, and it's to their value to sell 3 hours versus 2. Amazon wants that engagement. I just can't see it moving back to 2 hours. As much as that would be so celebrated by the audience, it's so counter to where everything is going in this one direction of just more content to get more dollars for. And so
now that SmackDown's going to be on USA, what's to stop USA from asking for a 3rd hour of SmackDown?
Nothing. Just if they will pay for it.
At some point, don't you think quality of programming is something that they're mindful of?
I mean, we saw where like when Raw moved to 3 hours, I think there was a period where it was like you still had like the Shield and you had some of those Danielson matches that like ate up a lot of minutes, but man, did we hit some like it was every week you would just I would still say now 3 hours.
Terrible.
Like how
It's
often do you
so
sit
bad.
through and it's like, "Oh my god, it just breezed through." I think if you wouldn't even need truth serum. I think just Hunter in it, like if you just asked him flat out, he would say 2 hours is better than 3. It's
I think
just in what
Vince
it
would
is.
tell you that.
I think anyone would tell you that, but
Mhm.
it's just it's crazy money to be able to turn down for that third hour. Like it just doesn't make logical sense to just for enjoyment.
But I suppose, like, if you're talking about a, like a streamer, like an Amazon, like, are hours watched that much more valuable? Aren't we just talking about, like, isn't the main metric signups? You know?
It is, but I mean, I think their argument would be like 3 hours of content is going to make it that much more must see. There's like another hour of content that you're going to be missing out
That's
on if you don't sign up.
I feel like that's so against, like, most of, at least, the people I hear from, and even myself. Like, 3 hours sounds so daunting that I'd rather not watch. But, hey, maybe I'm in minority.
I mean, they're trying to attract, a sports audience that are accustomed to tuning in for like multiple football games a week. And you're looking at that time as well. Yeah, I don't see the 3 hour format changing. And the idea of SmackDown moving to 3 hours, I totally wouldn't dismiss that. It would only like that's an economic decision. And
Mm.
would that happen? Would not stun me in the least. Seth, also tonight, speaking of football, no football competition as of tonight. So they are in the clear. And I bet you there was a lot of interest for this Cody Punk segment going into the show and coming out of it, word of mouth spreading about this segment, which was terrific.
I would say the Seth segment just as much. in
Yeah,
my
you're right.
opinion.
You had news to tease right off the top. So I'm sure that, and they made it very apparent he was kicking off the show as well. So a good point. He comes out and he's got the knee brace on his left knee and he's limping to the ring. The fans are chanting for him. He's getting choked up and goes over, hitting the cabrata onto Jinder Mahal and felt his knee go inward, finished the match. And then it registered backstage when he could not bend his knee and said that there was a chance he could miss WrestleMania, but went through with the MRI last week, got the results, a grade 2 tear of the MCL and a partial tear of the meniscus. And with surgery, they're telling him he could be out 3 to 4 months. And he doesn't know what the future is going to hold. I'm just taking it day by day. And before he can move on, Imperium interrupts. And they walk down. Gunther enters the ring, says they've avoided each other for a very long time. Rollins, it's interesting that you call yourself the workhorse champion and one that everyone can be proud of, just like me. And it's sad that you might not make it to Mania. Rollins says, I wasn't finished yet. I don't care what the doctors say, the whole crowd cheers, or how hard I have to rehab. I will keep my promise and take this title into WrestleMania and leave as champion. Gunther says he admires that from one great champion to another. And on Sunday, I'm going to win the Royal Rumble. Michael Cole must have yelled Saturday like 3 different times as soon as his segment ended.
Oof.
Saturday, the Rumble's on Saturday. And he chooses Rollins. And Gunther says he's going to win the Rumble, choose Rollins, and I'm going to target your knee. I'm going to target your back and everything else that isn't 100% to become champion. Rollins says, well, I'm going to remember who you're coming after. And he puts out his hand to shake it. And Gunther tells him, remember who I'm coming after. And they shake hands. And with that, Kofi and Xavier Woods jump Imperium at ringside. And that concluded the segment here with Seth Rollins. So, I mean, it was, unless Seth is playing it close to the vest and that he didn't actually state he was getting surgery. Like he didn't state that. He said with surgery, it would be 3 to 4 months out. So you would get the sense here he is going to rehab this knee and be good to go for WrestleMania.
Yeah. That, I mean, he wouldn't be promoting the fact that he could continue unless,
nor would they be starting
going
like
to.
a build. Like it's one thing to be like touch and go for Mania, but you need to have those plans locked now. That we're either building this match or we're not building this match. And they're obviously going.
Which match are you talking about?
whatever Rollins match is, if you
Okay.
assume they're going with the Punk direction, but you have to lock in the card now of what are we doing for the next 2 months to build to WrestleMania. And if you have a question mark, I don't think you're starting at that point, but they are obviously confident here that they've got him to do the match, and probably is not going to be doing any wrestling before then.
It's my presumption, that what I got out of this is that he's going to either avoid or delay surgery and just opt for rehab. And I have a feeling he'll at least be in good enough shape that he could pull off a match at WrestleMania. And if that ends up being the case, you never want to see somebody get injured, but this could end up being something similar to like a Cody torn pec moment for Seth Rollins, a type of injury that's certainly awful, but perhaps like not awful to the point where he can't wrestle one more match on it. And now it in effect gives him this incredibly sympathetic story that could potentially really end up defining his career, and perhaps take him to like a different level of, babyface sort of appeal. So we'll see how they
endless ideas of how you can promote this, like his training and rehab that he's going through. Like you could tell a very relatable story in the sense of like getting outside of the arena, and this is this guy's struggle to try and make it to this show, and why this title means so much to him. You can do a lot with this.
Yeah, and I thought Rollins came out here and did such a great job of spilling his emotions into the segment. I mean, this initial moment with him taking his glasses off and seeing the redness and the tears in his eyes, it felt every bit as heartfelt as Sean, in Syracuse, or like Daniel Bryan retiring. I mean, when he said that he's been through a rough week and he really appreciated that response from the crowd, it tells you exactly all you need to know about the range of emotions he went through. And it was just, a wonderful little moment. That the only thing I would say that was missing from it was a
So Kingston and Woods jump Imperium, and we go right into their match where Giovanni Vinci hits what Wade calls the best crossbody in the business to Kofi Kingston. Vinci was cleared and wrestled the house shows over the weekend, so he's back. Kaiser beats on Woods with strikes in the corner, and the New Day make their comeback, battle Imperium on the floor, sending them into the barricade, and we get the double countout at 9:04. And the crowd, I mean, they immediately boo, but then they picked up the action so much. They go into the crowd. Woods is sent into the timekeeper's area, and then they go for a chair shot with Kofi making the save. They fight on top of the equipment box and lift up Woods for a suplex when Kofi dives to save him and tackles everyone off, crashing through the tables. This brawl was great and ended like a satisfying double countout finish on the heels of Eddie Kingston and Gabe Kidd.
That is correct. Yeah. I guess among other sort of like, examples of this, because this feels like something that Hunter has used several times, at least, throughout his takeover of the regime. Whenever there's a feud that I think has the potential or is currently, in a sort of like highly intense state, he'll often do a thing where like, it'll either end in a double DQ or a double countout because people are so caught up in beating each other up that they just don't even care about the match result. And it's usually unsatisfying unless you give the crowd a very satisfying either spot or brawl post-fight. And we saw it with Bronson Reed and Ivar back in November. We saw it with Kaiser and Kingston in this same feud not that long ago, and they're doing it again. And in general, I think it's actually a very effective way of building to a rematch. But perhaps it might be in danger of a little overuse, in my opinion. Like tonight was like the first time where I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, they're doing this again. But the post-match brawl was a very good one, and maybe that's what matters the most.
Yeah, I thought it was really effective with the post-match. The crowd got into it as well, and you got like the big moment of like the spot at the end coming off the equipment. Throughout the night, they were promoting the 2K24 cover art that they revealed on Monday. So we have the standard cover with Cody on the cover, the deluxe cover with Bianca and Rhea Ripley, and then 40 years of WrestleMania from 1985 to 2024. How many years is that way?
Sorry, is there a bit of a WWE math going on here?
It's been 39 years. What now? I'm not going to be too nitpicky, but on the same night where you're promoting 40 years of Hulkamania and putting the date there of 1984 and the first WrestleMania is 1985, and we're promoting 40 years of both, the WWE math, then, now, forever.
40 years. When does the game come out?
The game comes out in March.
Okay.
Where it will still be 39 years.
I'm not. It's way too late for me to do this math, but I'll try take your word for it.
They also included, they played the trailer here for the game. Some weird looking characters here. Did you check out this trailer?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, obviously it was very intentional. It was like them using like modern day Steve Austin's face, like sort of like pasted onto a video game generated Steve Austin, and they did the same with Hogan, did the same with Taker. It was very sort of like surreal, almost awkward effect, but I don't exactly know what the intended effect was.
You can also get the Nightmare Family Pack, which includes Dashing Cody Rhodes, Stardust, Dusty, and Superstar Billy Graham.
Was he part of the Nightmare Family? With QT.
Well, I mean, it's Dusty's opponent at Madison Square Garden when he challenged for the title. So that's the tie-in.
There you go.
But this would indicate that, at least like, you know, since his passing, like there's some agreement with his estate with Valerie Coleman. So I mean, it's nice that he's included in this, and there would be you know, some financial compensation here for you know, somebody that was, you know, Superstar Graham went through like a lot of like hard years before his passing last year. Judgment Day are with Rhea Ripley, and Rhea is on Damian Priest's case for facing Drew tonight. So they're still keeping that in the background, the whole Rhea Drew McIntyre link. And you guys are defending the tag titles against DIY next Monday. And then Priest fires back that Rhea's got a big head now that she's on the cover of 2K24. The insertion of 2K24 promotion was on full effect tonight, from CM Punk to Damian Priest to everyone.
But in both cases, I thought really well done. Like it felt organic. Like, you know, like being on
as organic as you can get in a WWE setting.
I mean, I felt it was actually like it made a lot of sense why they would be brought up in these specific instances. And we'll talk about the CM Punk one later. But like being on the cover of 2K is, you know, it's like main eventing a little mini WrestleMania in this, you know, in the context of like a WWE superstar sort of career, right? And they're using it now as part of storylines, or at least as part of their promos. And I thought it made great sense here.
Well, she said she went to Adam Pearce early on, and Damian saying, stop going to Adam Pearce. And then he storms off. Rhea then tells them that DIY should have been taken care of by now. And she just browbeats Finn Balor. What are you laughing at? And says, it's been a while since we've seen your vicious side. And Balor says, I'll show you vicious. So we're look at Dominik's reaction here to this conflict within the Judgment Day.
I think Rhea and Priest are developing pretty good chemistry as like sort of you know, whenever they have to argue. And I'm very curious to know like how far they'll go with this little rivalry that these two have going on.
I thought Rhea was great in this segment.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd like that we're kind of moving towards that direction with Judgment Day. Like it's time to kind of like tease this inner conflict. Jackie interviews Ivy Nile and Maxine. And did you notice Ivy Nile? They have a new nickname for her. They said it about 55 times. She is now the Pitbull, and they don't call her the Pitbull for nothing.
Like, what the hell? You know, I thought we were moving past dog names for wrestlers.
Okay, Vince, you get one suggestion this year.
We'll put you in charge of one
nickname.
program. Yeah,
you're taking Butch away from me. All right, then Ivy Nile's the Pitbull. But wait a minute, that's what you called AJ. It didn't work. We dropped it. The Pitbull, goddammit, it's a dog. It's not the size of the fighting a dog.
Yeah, this feels like a weird outlier, you know, again, like in this new regime, that we would still have something this strange and I think completely ineffective. The amount of times that they tried to push this Pitbull thing for Ivy Nile.
Her finisher is now called, instead of the Bulldog, is now called the Pitbull.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, like she hit the Bulldog and Michael Cole called it the Pitbull.
Are you sure it wasn't just Cole commenting hey, the Bulldog from the Pitbull? Are you sure it wasn't just that?
Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I could have sworn he called it the Pitbull.
Because if anything, wouldn't it be the pit bulldog?
Well, that's not a real thing. He's swapping out one dog for another.
And a doom salt is a real thing?
I guess so. Well, let me ask you this. If you had to pick and you were like, okay, wait, these are your nicknames you get. You're either the Pitbull or the Barefoot Freak.
I might take the Barefoot Freak.
God. This like 3 minutes felt like I was watching an episode of Raw from 2019. We got a head scissors by Nile and then a pop-up headbutt by Valhalla. You might have missed it, but Nikki Cross walked out onto the stage during this match just because. And Nile hit the Pitbull off the turnbuckle to win in 248. And Wade says it's about the fight in the dog, and this Pitbull has a lot of fight.
Chat room says you're right. So Pitbull it is. Congratulations.
All right.
She's gonna get
where I can take them.
She's gonna get so over. I think with this, I don't know what's going on. With all of this. Credit to Valhalla, I would say, for trying to work a unique style. But man, I didn't think this worked well.
That's the Barefoot Freak way.
Yes.
Jey Uso's role on this show is to get ice packs for the New Day, and Jackie interviews them and says, "Where does this end with Imperium?" And we're getting like the serious New Day after all these years. We're not 12-time champions for nothing. We're the best team going, and we have been for the past decade. When you push us too far, you'll see what happens. We took out the henchman, and now Kofi's going for the big boss, and he challenges Gunther for next week. And all of a sudden, that after that Brock Lesnar lost, when he squeezed that item in his hand, it's all just setting the table for this.
I've been waiting for this Kofi Kingston since
2019. That
moment. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane how it's taken this long for them to cut.
Maybe that's Brock's dance partner for Mania. It's going to be Kofi.
A big rematch. Yeah. Kofi Mania 2, perhaps. Yeah. It really does seem to me like they are focusing and addressing, to me, New Day's biggest weakness throughout these several years. It's their inability to express anger coming off of a lot of terrible shit that's happened to this group over the past, several years. I mean, they lost one of their members, and we never really got to see them ever sell for it, nor really kind of turn it into motivation for something more. And that, to me, is the biggest reason why they've been so stuck at this level. So tonight was a great start. I hope to see them continue to build on this energy.
Nia Jax comes out and she brags about squashing Ripley, squashing Becky, and said it was really fun that they had their challenges last week for WrestleMania. She's getting berated with what chance. And Ripley and Becky, of course, they want to face each other at WrestleMania because they know I can beat both of them. And I'm going to kill their dreams at the Rumble this Saturday. Got the date right. Becky comes out and has given Nia something new to brag about for the next 5 years with the recent loss, and says, Nia, you have the biggest target on your back because the one thing the women's locker room can agree on is they don't like you. Bayley comes out, and she was here to give a message to Rhea Ripley, but this is even better because she's going to win the Rumble and will point to the sign, and they fight. And then this leads to a manhandle slam on Bayley, and then we get Nia tossing Becky over the top and leg drops Bayley. So Nia stands tall, and Becky is embarrassed by being thrown over the top rope by Nia. What was funny was Bayley stating she was here to deliver a message to Rhea Ripley, but then later in the night, Pierce said she was invited to promote the Royal Rumble.
Maybe that was the promotion.
Was that the promotion? Just come up to Rhea and say, I'm winning. I'm going to challenge you.
I suppose. Yeah. I feel like in comparison to like the men's Rumble, the women's Rumble this year has been built up pretty poorly, in my opinion. Yes,
they've done the announcement, like both sides, like they're going in, like the men's side, it's not a lot of names have been announced, but they're all ones they've pushed. The women,
you have several like contenders, and even if they're not real contenders, they at least have stories, right? They at least have motivations.
They're coming off of Raw. They are promoting Nia Jax, Becky, Bianca, and Bayley, and everyone else is unannounced as of now. And I would say of these ones, I guess these are your.
What the hell have you heard from Bianca? In regards to her desire to win the Royal Rumble, she hasn't.
She declared herself for the Rumble, but we haven't gotten that real like heartfelt promo of why.
We haven't had an attachment from her towards either a current champion or like just a motivation to, headline a WrestleMania again. Like the only real people you've heard that from are Bayley, okay, through her Damage Control sort of like desire to face Rhea Ripley and collect all the championships. You've heard it from Becky. You've heard it kind of from Nia, just in her being able to say nobody could beat me. But beyond that, how are we supposed to feel about the other 27 people that are supposed to enter this thing? We're expecting Naomi. That's going to be like a really nice little dark horse, perhaps. But beyond that, like there are a lot of gaps right now in this women's rumble of like people that I just don't think have any sort of like reason for us to believe and get invested in.
It's kind of the Becky Nia story with like Bayley as another alternative. Like that's what it feels like. And I guess Bianca you throw in there just based on
of her level.
At her level. We got several of the Royal Rumble numbers videos. In this first one, we got one shot of Belair winning in the Thunderdome year in 2021, and just seeing that visual of the screens is just
weird, huh?
Oh, it's so bizarre to go.
Did it feel like 4 years ago to you?
3 years ago.
Okay, the Thunderdome specifically. I guess I'm talking about
you're
the
right. They were doing the
general.
Thunderdome almost 4 years ago. Yeah, I mean it's been a long amount of time, but it doesn't feel super long.
I talked about this like with my chiropractor the other day, and it's just
the
like
Thunderdome,
not the Thunderdome, but just about the pandemic and how like it feels like it's a period of 4 years that just kind of like flashed by. Like I still remember that incredibly like vividly. Or like I remember 4 years ago very vividly, and it almost feels like that chunk of time went nowhere. We didn't go anywhere, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I can't imagine like sitting down and having to like rewatch some of those shows from that time. Like we did it. It was like we did it at the time, but man, I have less than like zero interest.
Hey, don't let Drew McIntyre hear you say that, okay? He's going to cut a promo on you defending the pandemic era.
Becky then runs into Ripley backstage, and Ripley tells her, "You better make other plans for WrestleMania." And Becky had like the saddest look on her face after being thrown over the top rope.
Not yet, at least. Yeah. This is the very clear sort of like WrestleMania program here for Rhea Ripley. And they're not teasing anybody else, right? So, and it's ultimately that's what matters most. I'm glad they're doing it. I just wish that they would build a bit more suspense by teasing a few other people. Yes, they're doing Bayley, but not nearly as hard. So maybe we'll get that Bayley Rhea interaction on Friday finally.
Then we have Dominik Mysterio and The Miz with Finn Balor and JD in the corners. Miz met with Truth earlier in the day, telling him to stay in the back. And when this match begins, there's a huge "We Want Truth" chant from this crowd. They also mentioned Dom's boots that he's been wearing of late, a tribute to Pero Aguayo Sr.
Yeah, a lot of ties between those families and tragic ties.
Miz is thrown to the floor, gets decked by Balor behind the referee's back. Then Miz hits his clothesline into the corner, and the rope is kicked into his groin. We go to the commercial. Miz hits his springboard crossbody, and then we got into this sequence of the it kicks. We also had the it chops, okay? That didn't look great either. And there was this ugly transition where Miz got like sent into the rope to set up for the 619. The final like minute of this, it was just like they were battling through quicksand here to the end. And we get a cheap shot from Balor and a frog splash by Dominik to pin him in 11 minutes and 23 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of cute that the Miz is still like trying to wrestle like a high flying modern baby face, so he'll like pull up moves like
springboard crossbody,
like I think he did a run off the apron or something, and then like a springboard crossbody, and it looks like pretty bad, but because it's the Miz, it's kind of amusing, so it's not going to be the prettiest of matches, but I guess like this is the gimmick. He's a baby face and he's going to do moves that he's not used to doing, and they're not always going to look great. So
I just hope he's not waiting for like night one of Mania to do the Miz 50 off the top rope.
That'd be something. What was this? What is it? Mean side of Finn Balor that he was, suggesting.
Yeah, he hit him from behind from the floor.
Okay,
Dick,
very mean. Yeah.
Judgment Day continue to attack The Miz when DIY run out. Their music plays, and dude, no one reacts to this music when they're coming out. And they lay them out, and it ends with a skull-crushing finale by Miz onto JD. Meet in the middle is stopped when Balor pulls JD to the floor. Further viciousness from Finn Balor.
You think we get a title change next week?
No, I would
Yeah,
not.
I don't think so either.
DIY does not feel hot.
Not yet.
Redmond is with Damian Priest and wants to talk about Drew. Congratulates Dom for handling business. And then R-Truth enters with his cut of the merchandise. And he talks about Finn adding him on Venmo. And Priest says, this is not the time for your humor. And just sends him off. This was not like a laugh out loud moment with R-Truth. It was just
but it did set up something for this evening.
Oh, it did. He says Drew was the man around here when everyone was struggling. But then once everyone was 100%, Drew couldn't beat Roman Reigns, Gunther, and he can't beat Seth Rollins. And it's out of jealousy that he doesn't want to see Priest become champion. But I will be champion, either by cashing in or winning the Rumble. And Drew will receive his punishment tonight. So we're to take this like literally that it wasn't just like the morale and the spirit that was down. Like we were unhealthy during the pandemic. And Drew was the champion when none of us were like at our physical best. Is that what I'm to take from this?
Is that what he meant?
Is this not an even playing field? Like Drew literally had COVID during this period and came out and addressed this when he had COVID. You remember that?
Yeah.
He was like the one guy that they allowed to acknowledge he had COVID. So this is a weird like way that we are painting this year that he had the title, that it was like, oh, we were all at our weakest. And Drew, it was like, Drew won the Academy Award. It was a weak year for Best Actor.
I mean, I think you could really just chalk it up as some level of trash talk, you know, from Priest trying to maybe continue to provoke Drew for only being champion during a pandemic years, right? But Roman was not there for that entire duration, right?
He came back in the summer? Yeah. But he was gone for the first bit of that year.
But he didn't face Drew.
Did face him, didn't he? Didn't they do the champion deal at Survivor Series? I think they did. They were still doing that
during the pandemic.
I'd have to double check.
Man, I don't even remember what happened last month.
It would have been a Survivor Series.
Whatever. Okay, so fine. You totally.
But he would have lost. He would have lost to Reigns. That would have been the point of this. Yeah, okay. Roman defeated Drew McIntyre at the Survivor Series that year. Champion versus champion.
I'm doing my best to try to justify these words.
It enforces though Damian Priest's point here that like he was anyway. So there you go. That's a weak champion. Bronson Reed warns Jey Uso that their paths are going to cross sooner than later. So he challenges him next week and said both of us want to be champions this year, but only one of us can win next week. So we're getting Bronson Reed and Jey Uso on Raw.
I don't know why this warranted, like several weeks of videos. I mean, Jey Uso is in the back with nothing to do. He's
icing New Day.
Yeah, he's just like talking to Xavier and saying like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, hey, you did great out there." That's about as much as we're getting from Jey. They really dropped the ball, in my opinion, on like this Rumble run for Jey Uso. He to me would have been somebody that I think would have been directly, like you could have told such an easy story for his case for the Rumble and wanting to go take down the tribal chief. I mean, even though none of us
when they showed the graphic way, they didn't even include Jey Uso in the graphic of the men.
Even though he was mentioned in promo by somebody like Cody, I believe. Like Cody mentioned,
I think so,
as one of the candidates to win the Rumble. So they beyond that, they just haven't had any activity nor any story for him. So nobody can really kind of take his chances seriously this year.
Chad Gable and Ivar. Gable comes out with a thank you crew towel that Maxine had presented him earlier in the day when he was warming up. The match begins with Gable running at Ivar with a rolling Kapu kick, and already this was tremendous. And he gets caught with a spinning slam. There's a vertical by Ivar. Gable goes over the top, but coming down, snaps Ivar on the top rope. Ivar manages to just recover and splash him off the apron. We go through the break. There's a tiger driver by Ivar for a 2 count. Gable then manages a victory roll, but rolls through and applies the ankle lock, which Ivar kicks him off of, drops him in the corner with a seated senton, but Gable goes back to the ankle lock. Ivar breaks free, misses with the doomsault, and then Chad Gable hits this beautiful bridging German, like in slow motion. And man, when Ivar kicked out of this, like this crowd, they kind of started a little lukewarm. By the time he kicked out of this, they exploded for this like I very much appreciate when wrestlers go out there and it's like a really like lull to the crowd. And it's just like, it's Gable and Ivar. You know what I mean? Like they just have their wrestling to get over with. And they did here. Gable counters a superplex into a German off the turnbuckle. And as Gable goes for the moonsault, Valhalla screams in Gable's face. I guess the mist is now property of Nakamura because this did not feel like a match-altering moment from the barefooted freak, but it's enough to distract Gable, and he's thrown off and hit with the doomsault, basically landing on his knee as he came down and pins Gable in 11 minutes and 2 seconds. So after going through all of Alpha Academy, Ivar beat Otis and Gable, and his loss was to Akira Tozawa. But dude, this match was awesome. I thought this was so excellent.
Such a great match. I don't know why, but like I never really kind of considered the chemistry between Chad Gable and Ivar. They have excellent chemistry together. You know, their size difference, I think, allows Gable to look really impressive. I mean, you know, whether it's him lifting the bigger man or like climbing around Ivar like he's some sort of tree and like executing these incredibly like fluid counters. It was excellent, like so excellent that I would love to see a rematch on a bigger stage with an actual storyline. But seeing a result like this makes you continue to wonder if they have any plans for Chad Gable. Again, nothing
feel like it. Like after all that Gunther stuff, I mean, they've totally like there's not even the passing reference that's in his back pocket of some goal that has been left unachieved. I just thought this was easily the match of the show. I thought this was great.
Yeah, but even like the bigger story here with Alpha Academy and Ivar, I don't really know because what is he going to do after this? You know, get revenge on Tozawa after this amazing match with
Akira
Gable?
Tozawa still thinks he's big, and Ivar is big.
So that's what we're building to at the end of all this.
Tozawa's the only one who got the win over this guy.
Yeah, I just don't really get it, and
there's not a lot they're doing with Ivar, but he is having some great performances in the absence of Eric.
Yeah.
There was a trailer for Love and WWE, Bianca and Montez, that premieres on Hulu February 2nd. And then we go to the big segment. Cody Rhodes comes out and is immediately followed by CM Punk. And dude, this place was electric just for these two entering the ring together. There's chants going both ways. Punk makes the effort here and shakes Cody's hand at the beginning of the segment. And Punk says that we both took very different paths to get here. And I hope by Sunday, we're still friends after the Royal Rumble. And Punk says he wants to talk about your father. And he mentions in 2007 being called by Dusty when they were in OVW, when Punk was in OVW, which had to have been before 2007, but we'll give him some leeway on the year. But he said, my son is about to start in OVW, and can you keep an eye on him? And Punk thought at the time that Cody probably doesn't need someone to look over him, but it's the American dream. So you say yes when you are asked a favor from someone like him. And he was in OVW. He watched Cody from afar and saw him grow from a prelim wrestler into this main event championship level superstar. And Cody, I'm proud of you. And I feel, though, that I'm breaking a promise to your father because at the Royal Rumble, I won't be looking out for you. I'll be looking for you. And I'm going to do what I need to do to win the Rumble. So Cody says, you know, I work with lots of people here that see my father when they see me. And he mentions Michael Hayes and Triple H and Paul Heyman. But I strive to be my own man. And when I came to OVW, I had no experience. I was a nepotism hire. While you toiled on the indies for a decade, but you treated me like a peer. And it makes this bittersweet because I know that there are no friends in the Royal Rumble. Then Punk says, well, can we be friends after? Can you separate personal from business? I can. And I didn't see you as a nepotism hire. I saw the burden that you walked with by having that last name and trying to escape that shadow. But here you did it with flying colors. We have two different paths, but one similar goal. And then I think just this felt totally like on the spot, put him there to finish Dusty's promo about dining with kings and queens and pork and beans. And I mean, Cody finished the line. He got it right. And says to Cody that of all his accolades and working to this position with his background, I'm more of the American dream than you are, Cody.
So he teed it up by saying, I don't have, your sort of pedigree. I am the son of an electrician. And that set up obviously sort of the contrast to Dusty being the son of a plumber. And that's why CM Punk is more of the American dream than Cody is. I just want to pause and talk about what a great line that is from Punk
it was
here.
an amazing line.
Like, it's the type of line that is so deep cutting that it would shake somebody to his core. I am more like your father than you are, and it's so simple. It almost makes you wonder why, like, nobody has brought this up to Cody in the past. Like, Cody continues to profess that he is, carrying on his father's dream. He is at least maybe in spirit, somebody who wants to finish the family story, but he never grew up like his father. Punk made an argument that he grew up more like Dusty than Cody ever did. Cody grew up the son of a celebrity. Dusty grew up the son of an electrician. So what true right does Cody actually have to finish his father's story? I just think there's so much in such a simple line here from Punk, and it was so well conceived and so well delivered.
And then you got the volley from Cody,
Oh,
who says, I want to discuss the pipe bomb, and said that you rattled off the formula for staging a revolution, and I was inspired by you, but then you left, and you really left. You didn't pass the torch on the way out. You took the torch and dropped it behind, and I took it. And says, everything that you spoke about, I did with my actions. And that makes me more CM Punk than you. I mean, it was just a tremendous back and forth here between these two. And if you remember, Cody, in a roundabout way, not even roundabout, like, did this promo.
This was the
AEW.
resolution to the AEW Dynamite promo that Cody initially cut about CM Punk that had no result whatsoever.
Exactly. And had none of the impact that this one did, because they weren't even being programmed together. It was just like one of Cody's like just bizarre into the ether, my words go type of promo that landed nowhere. And here, like, I'm watching this way and I'm like, this is the WrestleMania main event to me. Like, this is the match.
How many times have we said that though about these interactions? And this is all to say that Raw specifically has been killing it with these sort of in-ring segments, and we didn't even really discuss sort of like Seth and Gunther early on. That's another like legitimate WrestleMania night one headliner that you could actually foresee. This was another one. I mean, Drew, I don't know if we necessarily put him in the same sort of like echelon, but like that's another one. Do you have The Rock?
Drew and Punk just had that awesome segment a few weeks ago. Like, this is going to be one of those years where WrestleMania will be your big peak night, like business wise. They're going to have plenty in the tank for your post WrestleMania picture. Like, this could be Mania next year with these two if you play your cards right.
By then, hopefully, we'll have like a million other like potentially great matchups we could build to. But like, this is the year for the WWE that we're looking at. Even if they don't pay these off during the Rumble, SummerSlam, all these other pay-per-views have these incredibly intriguing programs full of like great material in story that they could build off of. And let's just again focus on maybe the specifics of this Cody line. You thought Punk delivered like a killing promo. Cody took it and he delivered like just as strong of a comeback here. He took Punk's great insult and he flipped it back onto him. And man, it was just like again, paid off finally, like the type of sentiment and I think thought that he came up with initially in that AEW promo, but he had no real kind of place to put it. Here he did, and he inserted it in the perfect spot. Yeah.
And Punk ends by saying that, Cody, you've carried the company for 2 years. You just got the cover of the video game, and then plugs that I'm sure it's going to be on sale soon. And you're right about to cross the finish line. And now a bigger star who hasn't been around for a long time is coming back to take it all away. And there was like this pause where I was curious if we were going to get any like Rocky chants, and they did not come. And instead, Punk just ended it, and it's me. And Cody just ends it by stating that my dad.
Oh, hold on. Just again, focusing on this portion of the promo. I feel like this was a bit of sort of like some material that might have gone over a lot of people's heads when they're watching.
I think people were so fixated on these two, they weren't even thinking about The Rock. But that line was so tailored for everyone to assume he was talking about The Rock before you get the punchline at the end. Yeah,
it was tailored to, I think, show sort of the similarities between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, and it was brilliantly done by Punk. I mean, the line could work in both ways, you know. Like you got the video game cover. You're just about to cross the finish line as you were headed towards WrestleMania and finishing your story, but then a bigger, meaner, or more established star comes in and takes it away from you. And I'm talking about me is what CM Punk said. And of course that could mean I'm the bigger, more meaner, badder established star that's going to take it away from you. Or he could be referring to everything that I just mentioned happened to me. And man, I again, like, it kind of just like repositions this entire interaction as if it was like CM Punk talking to a younger version of himself, except this time Punk is playing the role of Dwayne. And it's also the first time we're kind of hearing Punk almost embrace that sort of position where he is the bigger, more established star coming in to take a younger person's spot. And I love that. I need more of that CM Punk from him because it sounds more genuine.
Cody quotes John Wayne that courage is being scared and saddling up anyway. And I have to go through the Rumble, and I have to go through you on Saturday. And they just ended going nose to nose. A phenomenal segment. I thought this was one of the best Raw segments I have seen in years. I thought this was just excellently just put out there by these two. It was everything you would have wanted to send these two into the Rumble. Like, this feels like the most captivating thing on Saturday's show is these two.
Yeah, it probably is. But there are a lot of other great interactions in that Rumble. And again, like, Raw has had some really tremendous promo battles centered around this Royal Rumble and all the contenders that are going in. But for these two, this might have been the best one. I'd give these two a standing ovation. I mean, how many times have you seen a segment like this and chants are loud but completely mixed? You know, like, people were chanting Cody, people were chanting CM Punk, and you could barely kind of make each one out because it was like a muddled, beautiful mess of people equally passionate about both men. So they're just done such a great job with this Rumble build. They built another WrestleMania main event for themselves, and Cody, I think, is very much in his prime on the microphone. Punk, since he's been in the WWE, I don't think he's been near his best, but this was Punk near his best, if not at his best. Like, he had great material, had a lot of issues that I think he was able to bring up from his personal history with both Cody and his father, and it felt real. It was like the smartest that I think we've heard CM Punk in a very long time. Just a great segment overall.
Phenomenal stuff. Money segment. And then we go to a video of Hulk Hogan. Tomorrow, Tuesday, is the 40th anniversary, the legit 40th anniversary of him beating the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden. And so you've got Hogan reflecting on Hulkamania and then going through the current stars that have a bit of Hulkamania in them. And then it just turns into him previewing the Women's Royal Rumble. Did not expect us to get a breakdown of Hulk Hogan with the Women's Rumble, and then mentions that in the Rumble, there's always the surprise entrance, and mentions, you never know, I could have one more left in me. No, I think we can guarantee the man does not have one more left in him. And this tease just fell on deaf ears.
Yeah, I mean, is it because of the car saving thing that they decided to maybe suddenly bring him out? I mean, I guess they have the anniversary that they feel
they're doing this whole line of merchandise for 40 years of Hulkamania that they are promoting, which did kind of we're just ignoring the AWA years, but yes, okay. Hulkamania was born that day in WWF lore. So there you have it. Shayna Baszler, Zoey Stark against Candice LeRae and Indi Hartwell. We were getting late into the show. Candice managed a rope walk into a Rana, sending Stark off the apron into Baszler, setting up the break. We also had Katana Chance and Caden Carter ringside with the belts, and Chelsea Green and Piper Niven watching backstage. Baszler tries for the Kirifuda. Stark makes the blind tag. So when LeRae counters by rolling on top, she does not have the legal woman down and turns into the Z360. Starks pins her in 6:35. Carter and Chance hold up the belts, and they're saying, well, maybe down the road, they'll defend them against Baszler and Stark, because this Friday they're facing the Kabuki Warriors, who then jump the champions, and Kairi Sane and Asuka lay them out, and their theme plays. And there is not a performer alive who enjoys their theme music more than Asuka.
Kind of all she has, I suppose, dancing. These four were put into a really tough spot here, having to follow Punk and Cody Rhodes like that.
This was 6.5 minutes with like a 3-minute break in there.
Like, it felt like it was a bit of a flex segment, or they probably had their match cut, because of the prior segment. And I don't think anybody's really complaining, but still, nonetheless, another rush job, I would say, to maybe set up another set of challengers for Chance and Carter. I think maybe Chance and Carter are certainly an improvement over Piper and Chelsea, because they're appearing on TV more, they're wrestling more often, but it still feels like the division is like so unimportant, compared to the rest of the show. They're not getting meaningful stories, meaningful time to build to matches. But yeah, it is what it is.
Jackie asked Drew McIntyre if he wants to react to Cody and CM Punk's words. Nope. Said they're just following in my footsteps. I already won the Rumble and the title at WrestleMania. I want to respond to Damian Priest and the negative spin he is putting on my championship run. What I achieved in 2020, I beat Goldberg, I beat Lesnar, I beat AJ Styles. It's the most proud period of my career. People told me I literally saved their lives. Priest is not there mentally yet, and everyone is just saying the same thing. And there's only one chosen one. It's me.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like, again, making a lot of valid points. Like, I wouldn't classify this as any sort of heel promo at all. He's saying, hey, a lot of us did some great work during the pandemic, so don't you dare sort of like talk shit about it. But Drew is the type of character that sometimes you really like and sometimes you don't. And tonight he just happened to be very passionate about something.
Maybe he's going to be on the next investors call and be like, I kept those domestic television rights checks coming in every 2 weeks. We never missed a show.
I'm sure he's saying that at some meeting that he's trying to have.
Hey, it's contract season.
Yeah.
You know what? Where's our
percentage for him?
Damage Control runs into Natalya and Tegan Knox. They all argue about them coming to Raw. Pierce comes in, and hey, I like the fact we got a logical reason from Adam Pearce of why Damage Control was here, that Bayley was here to promote the Royal Rumble, and they were here to promote the tag title match on Friday. This was like a favor to Nick Aldis, and thus we get the separation here, and Natalya stating we will not be disrespected any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll assume that a bunch of these names are in the Rumble, but we don't have confirmation of that by the end.
This wasn't to build to the Rumble. This was to build to the tag title.
Well, I'm assuming they're all in the Rumble.
Right, but we have no real reason to believe any of them have a chance.
Pearson walks into Indashir, him and Jinder Mahal. They want to talk about their plans for the Rumble. So he says, okay, meet me in my office. And that's the last we heard of this. So going late into the night negotiating. Another Rumble.
And Jinder took credit for injuring Rollins.
Yes. And being the most talked about star of the year. Another Rumble numbers video. And so the graphic, we have Punk, Cody, Nakamura, Gunther, Priest, Lashley, and Drew announced for the men's match. And the women, Nia Jax, Becky, Bianca, and Bayley.
All right.
Tune in Saturday to find out the missing pieces. And next Monday on Raw, Balor and Priest against DIY for the tag titles, Gunther against Kofi Kingston for the IC title, and Jey Uso against Bronson Reed, finally.
All right. Mm-hmm.
The post-Royal Rumble Raw.
Could be a big one.
Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre is the main event. Drew's head gets driven into the post, and then Priest drops him onto the table with a broken arrow, which was the only thing that was broken because the table wasn't. They go through the commercial. Priest sidesteps a Claymore, and then an elevated flatliner connects Drew with the Glasgow kiss, and then Priest launches himself. First, he spins into the broken arrow for a 2 count. He then sends Drew to the floor, and Priest jumps over the top rope and somersaults down onto Drew. This was like an airplane coming down on a man's head. That's what this looked like.
This sort of had some of that. I mean, would this qualify as a meat match?
I guess so. It looked like a match that maybe hurt. In some
They were
moments.
hitting very hard. I mean, it felt very much, I think, of the sort of like, Drew, Sheamus type of caliber of matches.
Well, after nailing Drew, R-Truth appears with the cash, and Damian's annoyed and he shoves Truth and he gets booed for this. So Truth grabs his Money in the Bank briefcase and he's yelling at Priest, "What's your password?" It's very smart. How many guys have put like locks on their Money in the Bank briefcase?
I don't know. I haven't looked close enough. Yeah.
All I want to know is this continuity though. When this guy cashes in and he hands this briefcase over to the referee, someone better be dialing up that combination. Okay.
They're not opening the briefcase.
What if it's not there? If
I don't think
give me his word for it, then why does he have to carry this around everywhere?
Because
it's everywhere.
It's assumed that the contract is in the briefcase.
Can't we just assume he won the match that we all saw and we can just understand that he can just come down and just say, "Ring the bell"?
No.
Okay.
No.
So Truth grabs the briefcase, still has it. The Claymore is set up, but Truth gets onto the apron and he's yelling for the password. So Drew nails Truth, and then Damian manages the South of Heaven, but Truth has come into the ring and the money has flown all over the place. Drew is furious and knocks Truth out of the ring and then turns in and is hit with the Claymore as Drew pins him in 13 minutes and 22 seconds. So R-Truth thwarted Damian Priest's plan to beat the paper champion of the pandemic.
Yes, using paper.
Using paper.
Yeah. I mean, a very hard-hitting match. To me, it did feel a little bit rushed this deep into the show. I don't think it was really like the big memorable encounter you might have expected from these two, given maybe how long they've been kind of brewing their little feud. The silliness from Truth probably contributed to that as well. But it was a fine little TV match. I do think they could have been there. There's definitely a better match with these two in there somewhere.
I agree. I thought it was just for your closing segment. It left. It was a bit lacking for me. The R-Truth stuff works. I don't think it worked in this kind of
doesn't work in the main event, like of a heavily promoted match in my opinion.
And I thought it came off a little flat too. It was just it was a come down after the big segment earlier with Cody and Punk. So there you go. That was Raw. I mean, highlights again, the Punk Road segment and Ivar and Chad Gable. Definitely check that out. Like the Rollins segment. I mean, it was very, they started off with like a big newsworthy segment, and Gunther was great in that promo with Seth as well. Like think about a time a year or two ago when the idea of him being in that type of a prominent position talking, he's ready for established himself.
He's ready for like a main event level run. This was him flirting with it tonight, and I definitely think he's more than ready for it. I almost wonder if like they would carry over the IC title undefeated streak into his world title run and just promote him as like this undefeated champion, which would even raise the stock of the world championship that much more when you have somebody who's never been beaten ever holding it, right? So he's doing great. I would say I'm disappointed in like any of like the women's segments from tonight's show. I didn't think even the Becky Nia segment was all that great. The tag title division continues to feel like it's just there for the sake of being there. And
you're just contrasting it to how well the men's match has been built up and the women's match. Like it's really the Becky story. Like I wouldn't say like they have like Bayley's got a story. I wouldn't say it's this like red hot issue that you have.
But that's the bare minimum, right, John? Like you have 2 WrestleMania title matches for the women, and you're probably talking about the 2 people that are going to be involved in those stories. Yeah. Where does that leave everybody else?
Yeah, I think it was lacking overall. But there you go.
Yep, and we have, of course, a lot of super chats here. Thank you, everybody, for your support. At youtube.com/postwrestling, we go live after every WWE Raw, after every AEW Dynamite, and after every WWE SmackDown on Fridays in the Post Wrestling Cafe exclusively. But you can
hit
jump
that
the line.
Subscribe button, everyone. That's all we ask.
That's right. Yeah. You can jump the line in our feedback section if you send a super chat. And we first go to Rory, who sends $8 Australian to say, to start off, John, you are the most professional and the best to do this. I am a Pollock guy. I'm sorry that deadbeat did that to you. Thanks for what you do.
Well, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. I appreciate the compliment.
All right. Thank you, Rory. Let's go to Andy, who sends 200 rupees to say, John and Wai, you guys have always conducted yourselves with integrity, objectivity, and professionalism. Keep up the great work. Always happy to support your content. Thank you, Andy. Great edition of Postmarks featuring Andy B this past week. I've learned a lot about Andy and a very, very knowledgeable and very interesting person. So thank you, Andy, for all your contributions. Let's go to her niece, who sends $5. Okay, he says, free speech. Funny thing, since I believe the UFC took out part of Hamzat Chimaev's post-fight speech when showing it online, that was pro-Palestine.
Yeah, that was, something that people have pointed to as well. Again, I just think that you say such a unilateral statement that, like, there will come a time, I feel confident that clip will, look like there will come a time that there is an issue where they have to confront this in the future. And like, I don't mean to be like overly dramatic here, but I mean, like, where is it when, a fighter that shows up with like some like racist language or, wants to like, if like where there's a line somewhere.
Of course there is. Yeah.
And that's essentially what that was the attempt to get to, but it's a larger thing.
Free speech is the type of term that you say that'll immediately rally the troops behind you 100%. As your defense. So
yes. You're not seeing a lot of people that are defending this by quoting Sean Strickland or using that language. But when you wrap it up in this nice gift wrap called free speech, it's way more exportable to just it becomes a cause and it's a lot easier. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Joycey says, thank you, John. You will always be our leash boy.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
Hansi sends $2.79 to say, props to you, Pollock. Thank you, Hansi. Jake from the Windy City sends $5 to say, Cody and Punk, tremendous promo with the slow build, and it reached a peak. Sorry if it's been addressed, but no Pollock and Helwani show this year? It has been addressed.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was addressed. I'm trying to remember.
You did address it. You said no time.
It's been a busy month overall. But thank you, Jake. I know it's a popular show that we do.
All right. Okay, we got a Grunt Talk Saints who sends $5 to say, I was in the arena tonight and the pop for New Day was the loudest of the night. The new look and edge are electric. Well, that's good to hear. I hope they keep it up. Dickie Bird sends $8 Australian to say, I found the reaction to your question to Dana really offensive. Some people are into leashes. Hashtag stop kink shaming.
Thank you, Dickie, for weighing in. We appreciate it.
We don't judge at all. Gareth sends $2 to say, John, you are the best.
Okay, guys, I can't take all these. Like, I'm fine for like. Do you want me to read you some insults? Like, we can go into insults if you want to balance this out. I just have to open up my Instagram feed. I can get
if they buy a super chat, I'll read anything.
Okay, well, these people didn't give me any of that permission. So
okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. Very kind. Let's go to forum.postwrestling.com where our patrons can leave feedback to all of our shows anytime they want. So, want to start us off, John?
Let's go to Manny from Pacoima. I see good old Triple H saw that Conan welcomed back Del Rio back to Triple A with open arms and said, I can do that too, and brought in the old ketchup and mustard man. Gable and Ivar had an outstanding match, which was unfortunately kind of ruined by the interference. The Punk Cody promo was fantastic and had me begging for a match between the two. The Imperium New Day feud continues to intensify. I wonder if they go the street fight route or a 2 out of 3 falls. Overall, the Raw side of the Rumble has really done an outstanding job of selling me on the match this year. Shout out to the post-wrestling poster of social media for acknowledging Tom Mysterio as a lucha legend and Michael Cole shouting out Perro Aguayo, whom stable logo is now being used by the Garzas. Lucha things, Manny concludes.
Interesting. Yes. All right. Thank you very much for that. Manny. Let's go up next to Anirudh, who says the 90-minute cut of Raw continues to be the best show in wrestling. The core stories and build to the Rumble are narratively rich with fleshed out characters that I enjoy. I initially liked the idea of using the R-Truth subplot to juxtapose Priest's character development from the rest of the Judgment Day, but I wasn't a fan of him getting involved in the match. A couple more interference finishes than I would have liked, but a very good show nonetheless. 9 Scott Putski award-winning Randy Ortons out of 10.
Okay, we go to Muggin, who writes in the Cody Punk segment made me want the Rumble to happen tomorrow, but I can't fast forward 5 days. I thought about Cody's last AEW promo about Punk's infamous pipe bomb, and that's when it clicked for me when he was in the ring with him. It's a 2-horse race between them. As long as Rollins' health improves over the next couple of months, Punk will be headlining night 1. As for who wins the Rumble, I'm going to say there's no such thing as a dead end. There's no winner during this promo. It was a tie. Something has to give. The Rollins-Gunther promo gives me some hope that he won't be skipping WrestleMania provided that he gets his health in order. I think that was.
They might continue to play with like the, like possibility that he might not be able to make it. But I don't think they would have him cut the promo he cut tonight unless they were confident that he could make it. Let's go to Theon finally from Trinidad, who says, I love the back and forth between Punk and Cody due to the fact that they both had good material for each. While in the past, when superstars are on the mic with somebody like Cena, they're told beforehand that they can't say certain things to Cena, essentially to ensure Cena destroys them on the mic. Ooh, how times have changed. By the way, my first feedback since the first SmackDown in front of a live crowd in 2021. Have you heard that? Like, is there actual sort of evidence of something like that happening with Cena promos?
I have not heard that, but if any past performers have shared that, I'm not aware. Right. But there you have it, everybody. Thanks for the feedback. Thank you for the super chats as well. Big week coming up here at Post Wrestling. Of course, we will have lots of coverage of Royal Rumble coming up on Saturday night. We'll be live here minutes after the Rumble concludes to take your phone calls, chat about the show, all that great stuff, and maybe someone joining us that will be in attendance at the Royal Rumble as well. So lots coming up. Again, we have You Cannot Kill David Arquette. That review will be out on Thursday. And then Pollock and Thurston with Dave Meltzer is coming up on Wednesday. But all roads lead to the wellness policy on Tuesday. 3 Eastern, Wai Ting, Neil Flanagan, and Jordan Goodman are going to be chatting about faith.
Faith, yes. It's a conversation Jordan wanted to have. And I'm looking very much forward to it. 3 p.m. Eastern time, youtube.com/postwrestling.
Yes, and I have plenty in humanity to spare. So thank you everyone for tuning in. That is it for Rewind to Raw. We'll speak with you later this week.